Okay, I started today's class on circles by asking if the kids could write down what the formula for a circle would be that has a radius of 7 and has the center at the origin. So it looks like this. It has a radius of 7, and hopefully you wrote this. X squared plus y squared. I didn't put anything in with the x's or y's because it didn't move. Equals 7 squared. Raise your hand if you had that right. Most of you. Good. Okay. If you say 49, it's the same thing as 7 squared, right? That's fine. Okay, now what if I want to move it? It's really simple. If I want to take this x and move it to the right, I go x minus something squared. And if, say, I want to move it to the right 3, I go like that. And then I go, if I want to make the y, it's pretty much still a y squared, but it has something with it. So if I want to make it go down 2, then this one's more tricky because we're used to being able to trust the y. But now we can't because it's on the inside. So you got to think it through and say minus 2 seems like it should be down 2, but we're going to write it in the counterintuitive way, right? So if I want to move it up 2, I'd have to say minus 2. If I want to move it down 2, I'd have to say plus 2. It's the opposite of what you'd expect, right? Okay. So, and then the radius, again, if this is the trickiest one, because then what's the radius of 1? It's at the end there. The radius would be 1 in this circle. Even though it doesn't say 1 squared, because 1 squared is 1. So anyway, if I say another number like, let's say, here'd be a real trick question to put 23 and then say, what was the radius of the circle? What's the answer? The square root of 23. That's right. Because if I had put 49 here, you would have known that the radius was 7, right? Because you take the square root of 49 and you get 7. So if I put one like this, then you'd know that it was 23. Square root of that, square root of 23, is the radius of this circle. All right, so that's the basics of circles. What are we going to do today to move on and make it more challenging? Not much, to be honest. We're going to just practice this stuff and do a couple of things regarding their domain and range. We really didn't talk about domain and range too much the other day, but I'm going to remind you about domain and range, and it's on the worksheet too. So your worksheet for today is prep for a little thing called a performance assessment that's going to happen tomorrow. A performance assessment is where you come up and I ask you questions about circles. Yeah. And then let's say there's 7 questions. Okay, here'll be an example one. All right, you ready for this? All right, so on a circle, let's say that I have an equation, or I want an equation for a circle, and I want it to end with 100. What can you tell me about that circle? It ends in 100, so you could be able to tell me something about the circle. A radius of, no, not 100. You just lost a point. A radius of, try it again. Square root of 100, which is 10. All right, so 10 would have been the correct answer for that one. And yeah, it's a little scary because the teacher's like standing there asking you questions. If you don't know the answer, then you lose the point. I will give you a second, and I'll let you have a piece of paper so you can kind of like work it out if you need to, but I'm going to ask you questions. Okay, this is a little bit like a dissertation that you have to do in if you're going to get a doctor's degree. That you get really, really smart on a certain topic, and then you get drawn in front of probably the smartest people at the university, that all totally know their stuff, and then they ask you questions about your project that you did, and you have to show that you are totally knowledgeable about everything about that, and that they can't trap you in anything, and then you can pass and get your doctor's degree. It's called your dissertation. Anyway, you guys are going to do a really mini one. I'm going to ask you questions about circles. So I'll give you another one. Here's another question that you would, for instance, have to know. Is a circle a function? Okay. In a way, it sort of is, though. So can you describe that to me, Mr. F? How so? How is it 2 functions? The top part is a function, and the bottom part is a function. All right. Why isn't it a function? Why isn't a circle just a function in the first place? Doesn't pass the Brook-Lyon test. All good answers. Okay. So you're going to have to answer about 7 questions like that about circles. If I might say something about, there's really not too much else we know. We know about how to move them up and down and left and right. We know how to, trust what's on the no, we don't trust the stuff on the inside. We can trust what's on the outside. Yes? I could ask you any 7 questions that I want to, but I do have 7 questions kind of in mind ahead of time. And so what I usually will do is if a kid answers something in a way I'm not sure that they really know what they're talking about, I might clarify a little bit and say, so what do you mean by that? Or, you know what I mean? But I won't like ask one kid really hard questions and another kid really easy questions. I got kind of the same questions in mind. I just might ask them in a different order, and I might ask them to clarify things if I'm not sure they really knew what they were talking about. Okay, so that's going to happen tomorrow and the next day. Realistically, it takes a while to get through them. And so it's actually going to be 2 days of performance assessments. While I'm doing that with kids up in front, you are going to be working on a gigantic practiced worksheet that's got all the stuff you've ever done in algebra. And you'll be plowing through that thing over the course of a couple days. Good part is not much homework for you because we're doing it in class. So got kind of a couple easy days of class. As long as you know circles, they'll be easy and fun days. All right, that's the next couple days. Okay, so let's move on here. And I've got a little activity that kind of goes with these circles. I want you to just look, and I can move these little bars around, these little dudes, and drop them into slots here. And then if I think I got them all right, I can hit check. All right, so I'm going to call on the first person in this row. Would you go up, grab one, drag it into a spot? And then I'm going to call on the last person in this row. Come on up, find one, drag it into a spot. You can't see the whole thing. Oh, the equations aren't long enough? Interesting. Okay. Valid point. There, you can touch it if you want to see it scroll. Okay. So if you think one's close, like, ooh, I think that might be it, go ahead and touch it and it'll scroll on for you. It's okay to be checking with somebody. That's fine. Just so you know, I'm going to pick the first person in this row and the last person in that row. So tell me what you're thinking as you're thinking that one might. You think that one's it? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Next person, you got another idea? Hopefully you weren't going to do the same one she was doing. Thank you. Okay. Next person. As you're doing this, what are you thinking? What are you looking for? On the circle. I mean, are you looking for its radius? Are you looking? Yeah? Okay, the radius is a good way to cheat this system. So you're saying you're trying to find one that has. Well, apparently that one is not going to move. There you go. So that one has a radius of what? Uno. Okay, so it could be one of two different things then, right? And if that other kid was right, then it can't be that one. So there's really only one choice if the radius is 1. Okay, good. All right. Go ahead. And then you're going to be coming up next. Guess we'll have to use process of elimination. That last one won't scroll, so I'll just put that one up there. Thank you. Now, I'll hit check. First of all, though, does anybody want to make a prediction that it's right or wrong? You think there's one wrong? Ding, 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 ding. They're right. All right. All right, moving on. If you were going to graph this thing, you're not up here, but he is. Come on up. Help him out. Tell him some stuff that he should do. The radius is what? Radius is 5. Tell him something else. You think it's on the origin? You think the center's over there because why? It's the opposite. So it's to the left one and up one. You are correct. Nice job. All right. And now pick somebody else to do the rest of the circle for us. All right. So now tell me what you're thinking as you're walking up there. The radius would be what? All right. So it looks like he's counting out 5, and he's going to count it out in every direction. I think you're don't touch. Go to the left of those spots. You know what I mean? Because you got to be straight up from this if you're going to count up 5. Oh, it's really close to that. Don't erase it or anything. It's fine. Just put another dot in there. Ooh, good thinking. Move the dot. Think outside the box. Okay, now pick somebody else to do the next step. Yep. Wait, stop. There is a circle tool I'll help you use. Which of the buttons do you think? There you go. And there it is. And start at the center and drag out. Touch and drag. There you go. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Nice work. All right, better than you thought. Okay. Now pick somebody to do the domain. Ah. All right. So domain is left to right. So that won't be that bad. Who's the other teacher? Yeah, that's yeah. I know it's not healthy. I'm aware. All right, he's a little nervous. He was looking at the crowd like, is anybody cheering me or not? I think they must think you're right. Okay, and pick somebody for the last part. Pick somebody. All right, perfect. Okay. I don't know if they'd be that cool, but a TV? Okay, that's impressive. He's going to die like 5 years from now, but at least he'll have a TV. I'm sure anything in too much quantity is bad for you, but all right. Very nice. All right, any questions about this? I believe we have done it correctly. All right. Some interesting factoids about pop. You can take pop, pour it into a like dish, put a steak in there, and it's one of the best things that you can tenderize meat with because it will dissolve parts of the meat. And then when you actually put the meat on the grill or whatever, it's really tender. So one of the best marinades out there is like cherry Coke. It tastes really good to marinate meat in cherry Coke. On the downside of the dissolving thing is that if you put like teeth in there, they'll dissolve. Like, what does that tell you about your teeth and pop? Not necessarily real good. So you like take a baby tooth from like, I got a baby brother or sister, put it in a little glass with some pop and let it dissolve, and it might give them a little lesson about what pop, how good pop is for your teeth. So anyway, oh, then you get lots of calcium. Sweet. All right. So graph the following. If we're going to graph this one, what's weird about this one is the y doesn't have anything by it. What does that mean? Don't move the y, so I keep the center of the circle right here? That doesn't make any sense. Which way do you move the center? Left, 4, and you don't move it up or down. That's the whole thing. You just keep it, on the up, down, you keep it at 0. Okay. All right, and this radius would be, it's going to be so tempting to make it a radius of 16, but then you realize, oh my gosh, it's outside the graph. I can't even make it that big. So, oh yeah, it's 4. So then you go 4 here, 4 here. You won't have a neato circle tool to do this on your test, so you just kind of freehand it, and I won't complain if it looks eggish. Yep, put the points there. All right. If I give you the graph and ask you to write the equation, those are actually easier, I think. That's the standard equation. This one's not standard, though. I got to change the radius to what? I put a 4 here? Yes, you do. But you could put a 2 squared there also, right? All right. And that's important to understand that this radius is squared. Okay, and next thing, it's over 3 to the right. How do I do that? I go on the inside here and go -3. And then on the inside there, +1, even though it went down 1. Yeah. All right. Okay. I think you guys are going to be solid on this. So how about, okay, question though.
Well, it's not very relevant, so if you want to.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Are we going to start like stretching the axes to make like ovals and stuff?
Okay. Yep. So I was thinking the same thing. If because somebody asked it earlier, that's okay. They asked, "Are we going to stretch these things?" No, but it is really simple to do. Imagine if I wanted to stretch it in the x direction. Take a wild guess where I would put the 2 to stretch it in the x direction. Yeah. So if I go put a 2 here, which way do you think that would stretch it? Up, down, or left, right? Interesting. Well, it's on the outside. So does that give you a hint? How about if I put a 2 in there? Shouldn't that go left, right? And then I'd need a parenthesis. And remember, the stuff on the inside is counterintuitive, so it wouldn't be twice as wide. It would be half as wide. All right. All right. Anyway, that's not something you're going to get tested on. All right, but this is, and so it's well worth your paying attention for this last thing on circles. All right, see the equations? Could I type those into your y = screen and get a circle to pop out? No. Why not? It's not solved for y. So what could you do? You could solve it for y. Go ahead. Try this one right here. This will really stretch your algebra skills. If they are weak, this will help you realize that. Gonna need like 5 steps. So you're trying to get the y alone. So first step is to move this stuff over to the other side. How do I undo squared? The giant square root. And when I do a square root, what am I supposed to not forget to do? Absolute value. Very easy to forget that. Do I have to figure this all out? Nope, you can just leave it just the way it is. You do not need to multiply this all out. It actually is better off if you don't multiply it all out, because then you can see which way to move it and stuff. All right, next thing is, since it was an absolute value, I have 2 answers, and that's why there's 2 equations, because you get the top half of the circle and the bottom half of the circle, remember? So it's y - 3 is equal to positive square root of 16 minus x plus 4 squared, and then y - 3 is equal to negative square root of 16 minus x plus 4 squared. It's really close, but it's still not solved for y, is it? Now is the part where I get the y completely alone by, to get rid of this -3, I do +3 on both sides. Notice that's outside the root. And I do the same thing here, +3 on both sides. So there's a +3 outside the root here. Normally it'd be to the right of it. I don't have any room, so there's my 2 equations. What if you don't get that and you get one wrong in your performance assessment? Well, there's 7 questions. What if you get one wrong? 6 out of 7, an A? That's a B. Okay, so you can't just say, well, I knew pretty much everything. Well, yeah, then you get a B. If you know pretty much everything. If you know everything, you get an A+. So your choices on this test, most of you are either going to get an A+ or you're going to get a B. Some of you will get a C-, which tells you get 2 wrong. It's in the formative, or excuse me, in the summative. It's in the 85% category. So, yeah, it's a test. It's only 7 questions. It's not a lot of points. Last test was out of 30 for perspective. But it will help or hurt you. So make sure you know circles. If you don't get how to solve these things, go look at my steps right now and try try to learn from your mistakes. If you want to ask me during class today too, during the last few minutes while we're working on your worksheet, feel free to ask me. All right. So is there any other things that you want to know? All right. I will take volunteers tomorrow that feel confident that they know what they're doing for volunteers until I'm out of volunteers. So you might get lucky tomorrow and not have to go if you're not completely confident. But once I'm out of volunteers, then I will just start going through it either alphabetical or reverse alphabetical or whatever. So, okay. Any questions? All right then. So you got a worksheet for homework, and I'd recommend doing it tonight, checking it, because you got this little performance assessment tomorrow, and you don't want to look silly if we don't have enough volunteers and I call on you. Say.